Welcome everyone to a new update in which we are going to discuss the markets of Bitcoin. However, things are going to change on this YouTube channel as I've been saying in the previous updates. I believe that the markets are not only about crypto, I think they are macroeconomic, and therefore we are also going to focus ourselves on the actual fundamental movements of the markets and why it's impacting Bitcoin, but possibly also crypto. So we're going to, let's say, diversify and broaden this entire YouTube channel, which would be the reason why it could be more valuable for you to actually watch the YouTube channel instead of me saying stuff twice a day that doesn't really make sense because the price action sometimes just doesn't move. So then you don't really need to make content at all. I think that the crucial factor here is that I would like to make content. And if I like to make content and it's valuable for myself, I think it's also valuable for you. And I think you really want to watch the actual update that we are posting. So that is how we're going to progress the coming months. Right now, as you can see, it's still in my home where we've got the YouTube studio. We're doing the live streams on Monday morning at 7 p.m. Central European Time. Today, we're doing a market update, which is solely focused on the price action. And on Friday or Saturday, I'm going to upload another video. And then we're going to dive a little bit more into the fundamental aspects of the markets and some keynotes that you should be looking at, or also reasoning why certain price movements are actually happening. So today in the update, we are going to discuss Bitcoin price action. And I guess we all know that we are living into a crazy world. We have been living into a crazy world. However, the other wars were never in the spotlight. Now this war is into the spotlight, resulting into crazy volatility on the markets in itself. So what did we see in the past weeks? We've actually been seeing the correlation between gold and risk on assets, which are indices, turn to negative, almost close to 1. In which the fact that Bitcoin is running upwards, gold is probably dropping down and vice versa with the indices Bitcoin and gold. Now the first question you are going to ask yourself is, why is Bitcoin not acting as a store of value or the actual upgrade of gold, which is sound money? The reasoning is quite simple. Gold is there already. It's a store of value. It might not move all the time, but then it probably is underpriced of the equilibrium, etc. It just requires some time, and that topic we're going to discuss at a later point in time. However, Bitcoin is naturally still an asset that's being used as a speculative tool to actually make money in the fiat currency that you're living in. That's a different asset, but it's very comparable to an asset like tech stocks or indices in itself, which are also used to make money for your own fiat currency. Yes, people are using Bitcoin as a method of payment, in which El Salvador is proving that, but also Ukraine has been making Bitcoin a legal tender. So that is different, but the majority of the trading is still being used for speculative reasons. That is also the reason why Bitcoin is currently not really moving with gold. So in the end, in the majority of the actual assets, so in the decades from now, we probably are going to see Bitcoin shift towards the store of value and actually move like gold. However, in the first real panic moves, and currently we are living into a market that is being moved by panic, Bitcoin is acting as an asset like the indices are doing. So we've had a few of those panic moves. We've also been seeing some momentum towards Bitcoin at this stage. However, can we clearly say that the momentum is going well at this point? Well, we're still acting beneath some crucial levels. And there are also some fundamental points that you should be looking at when it comes to the price action in itself. So when we dive into the actual price action of Bitcoin, we're going to discuss a few scenarios based on the current price action combined with what is going to happen in the coming period. So we're going to discuss a few of those scenarios next. So in those scenarios, we are going to check the price action first, which means that we're going to look at this structure that we're currently facing with Bitcoin, and we're going to analyze what options we currently have when it comes to the markets. First of all, we've had a choppy market, right? We've had those panic moves when it comes to the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, resulting into a new all-time high for gold, but also a correction of Bitcoin. Now that panic went away and we are into a neutral new world where gold has been correcting a little bit and Bitcoin has been pushing back up. It's actually interesting to see that Bitcoin is relatively more stronger than the indices at this point, which is something interesting to note. But yeah, that's what we're currently facing. What do we see when it comes to the price action in itself of Bitcoin? Well, first of all, we've had a beautiful test here of this level. We also still have this entire block as potential support, that if we are going to have more downwards momentum, which is still questionable, that is a level that you definitely should be watching, because then we are going to take the liquidity beneath those recent lows, and that is probably a place where you can find demand for the markets overall. And we're going to discuss those supply or those liquidity levels even more. On the upside, we've got a clear resistance zone that we have not been testing yet, or at least once only, which is this entire region at 46 to 48k, this entire block, right? So we are acting in between, and we could conclude that that is a range where the price action is currently just consolidating. When we're looking at the daily time frame too, we can also see a block here, which is currently important to keep an eye on, or at least that is the level that we should be watching if we are going to have any corrective move at this point. All right. So now we're going to look at the lower time frames, and I'm going to erase that for a little bit. We still have this entire block. We've had one test here that we have been having earlier, right? We have been testing 46k once here, but this entire block is something that is of a different range, and that different range we are currently not acting in. What we also know is that the Bitcoin price has been breaking through resistance at 39.6. So we could conclude that if we want to have anything, or we want to seek for any demand, we probably are going to look at 36.2, or we're going to look at a retest of 40k. I don't have corona, but I've been living in aircos and stuff, and yeah, that's having its reaction. So we have got this impulse move up. Then we've got the highs here, and we have been tapping the actual high and have been moving above it to take the actual liquidity, right? We still have those two highs, so there might be a case where we're going to take the high one more time, get ourselves that liquidity tap, and then reverse. So now we get into the territory of having questions for ourselves of what are we going to expect when it comes to the markets. Are we into a bull cycle, or are we into a bear cycle? Technically, we are still in a fragile market, right? So we are into a market where I would say panic is still the reason why it goes up or down. That's why the past few days you don't really see anything happening to the markets of Bitcoin. So if the negotiations between Ukraine and Russia are going to end into peace, I do not believe Bitcoin is going to run up, because of the simple fact that the hike rates are going to happen, or maybe even be more intensive, through which risk-on assets are not the assets that you want to be in, and assets like cash or gold maybe are assets that you want to actually be acting in. If the war is going to continue and negotiations are not going to take place, that might be a reason why we're actually going to have some upwards momentum again, and that might be a reason why the bull cycle for Bitcoin could continue. In that case, the hike rates for internal economies is not, or defensive, defending your own internal economy are not going to be so much important at that stage, because funding the war is going to be one, and then the hike rates are going to be delayed, and then we just keep on playing the music, and the bubble is going to expand even more. So that is probably what we are currently looking at. Meaning that until the hike rates of March, we probably are not going to do much. There are a few scenarios that we should be looking at when it comes to the markets, and I've got one primarily scenario, and that's what I'm going to describe with you. It's first of all kind of weird to actually say that if the markets are going to continue running, we need a war that's going to be crazy because of the funding that we're going to have. I'm not standing by that view, but I'm just analyzing the markets. I'm not in favor of that. We don't need war, but I'm just analyzing here, making optimal decisions for everyone to actually make valuable plays for your trades. So now we have been taking the actual liquidity here. We have been tapping there, and we are just consolidating. We also know that we've got a critical resistance 46k, plus we've had just seen a 30% move, plus we know that the negotiations might not end well, which over longer term perspective, a longer war is probably going to fuel the bubble on risk on assets, but short term we are going to have a panic reaction because of the shock it has, and people are flying into gold again. So imagine if we are having Russia taking over Ukraine, or the negotiations are not ending well. I do not see Bitcoin all of a sudden run up above the resistance. Plus currently we are actually acting into a resistance point, which is not favorable for me to actually long. What should I do if I have got a position right now? Well, actually that is what we're doing in our platform. So I'm sharing all the trades that I do, the balances with my portfolio. We even got a staking portfolio. Check it out into the description beneath 8global.com. There you can find everything that I do based on the trades. But if I would not have any position, I would definitely wait. There is no clear confirmation that you want to start shorting, but the next scenario that we're going to discuss might be an option. There's also not a clear case to start looking for longs because those runs have been taking place already. De-risking is a good option, but if you don't have an option, if you don't have a position, you don't have that option. So what am I looking at for a scenario right now? Well, currently here, we have also been having a relatively short correction, and we started move back up. Right now we are into a territory where the RSI is also hitting high levels. But we could be having a case where there's two cases. First, we could be having a corrective move towards this area at 41.6 because of the block and the support levels that we have here. There might be a day trade long, and then we have got another move here in which we tap above the range, take the liquidity, and then we start reversing and get ourselves towards 38 to 37k as a potential long entry. So if we get into the 42k region, that might be a long entry for me personally. We could also not have that and actually move back up already, which is going to be a move into resistance. I'm not interested in going into a resistance and long there. I might also not be interested if we're going to consolidate, or if we're going to run all the way towards 49k and consolidate here because of the heavy impulse moves that we have been experiencing. But it's kind of comparable to the price action that we've seen here. Impulse move above these recent highs, taking liquidity there, drop, retest, another impulse move taking this liquidity, and then we started reversing. I'm looking at the same scenario at this stage, in which we are going to have another run back up, take the liquidity above these highs, reverse back into the range, reject here, and then I'm going to look at the entire range of 36k for potential longs there. So personally, if you want to know my portfolio and my trades, definitely sign up for the group. There you can find everything. But this is my current primary scenario. Whether or not we're going to test 42k or whether we are going to test the highs again, I think that I'm slightly bearish, given that we could be expecting bearish reactions to happen. Like for instance, if the war is going to continue, or if the negotiations are not going to help, probably that's going to have a negative short-term impact of the on the price action of Bitcoin, and the bullish after that. If we are going to have peace, or the war is not going to extend, we're going to have maybe some short-term bullish reactions on Bitcoin, but long-term bearish, given that the hike rates are going to intensify. So that is my case of Bitcoin at this point. Let's have a look at the altcoins. So we've just been discussing the potential scenarios of Bitcoin, and we've also been looking into the fundamental reasons why these things should be happening, combined with the levels where we are acting right now. There's a different topic, which are altcoins, and altcoins are not showing too much strength. Definitely, you can watch those USDT values go up in value, but technically they are just following Bitcoin, which means that if you look at the altcoin against Bitcoin, it drops a value. Meaning that if you are in Bitcoin, you are actually gaining more than being in that exact altcoin. That's always something you should be keeping in mind into your mind, as you could be in your altcoin, but if your altcoin goes up 5% in USDT value and Bitcoin goes up 15% in USDT value, the strength isn't really into those altcoins, because if we really want to see strength, you would like to see those altcoins go up more than Bitcoin. Why? Because they are a riskier asset than Bitcoin are, or Bitcoin is, and because of the fact that Bitcoin implies less risk, those altcoins should be running up even more when Bitcoin goes up. Very simple approach, but that is something that you should be keeping into your mind. Then we also have a case where the entire Atom ecosystem is actually doing well. Luna is doing crazy, some other ones in the Atom ecosystem are doing great, meaning that a small segment of the market is actually moving. And that is great. Congratulations if you are into that ecosystem. But I would definitely argue the following. If you are having positions into altcoins at this point and they are not moving, I would definitely advise not to jump over to something that's actually moving, as that is the first recipe to get your portfolio into a disaster. So just stick to the plan that you have. Might want to adjust given the market circumstances, but don't start chasing FOMO, because FOMO in itself is also a panic reaction, and this entire market is being moved by panic. Now, the reasoning why altcoins are not moving too well is because of that fear that we are currently experiencing in the markets. And therefore we mean that the focus is solely onto gold and Bitcoin, in which we are reacting on the Fed, we are reacting on the war, and there's not much confidence that the markets are actually going to run up even more. So therefore Bitcoin has to regain some levels, but we also need to have some more conclusion about the interest rate hikes that we're going to face, because if we have more fundamental conclusion and the actual horizon of trading goes from a short term to a longer scope, we probably are going to see a shift towards altcoins more, as people feel more safe to be into Bitcoin. People don't want to have those excessive implied risks, and therefore you see the weakness overall with those altcoins at this point. We've just been discussing the actual scenarios that we could be seeing when it comes to the Bitcoin trading. Now we are going to check a few altcoins like Ether, and we can see why they are moving less than Bitcoin and which levels we should be watching. So altcoins in itself, how should you determine the actual strength? Well, that is through Bitcoin pairs. And we can see that the Bitcoin pairs are not showing too much strength, except for Luna, except for the Atom ecosystem. But yesterday I've also made a post where I stated, okay, so we are in a current situation. Why would you need ADA, or why would you want to buy ADA? I don't want to attack Cardano community. I just used it as an example, maybe a poor example, but it's the same with Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, any other layer 1, layer 2. You need some more confidence in the markets to actually be trading those, and there need to be a use case, which is there fundamentally, but given the short-term horizon that the markets currently have, people are not focused on what is going to happen in the years after, so we just need some more time. What we can see with the altcoins at this point is that ETH against Bitcoin, for instance, is dropping down. So the Bitcoin pairs are losing momentum, and also Cardano against Bitcoin is just trending down heavily. So when it comes to those, you clearly want to wait for additional confirmation or on fundamental grounds, which is those hike rates, but also on the price action of Bitcoin. So for instance, Bitcoin clearly having a bottom structure, clearly flipping 46k. Those are two reasons why you want to rush into altcoins at that point, because then you have the scope for your trading is going to be changed, and you actually want to move into those, or you can actually start trading them. What do we see more? We see that the Bitcoin dominance is currently moving upwards. I think that we're gonna have some more upwards momentum at this stage, especially with the fundamental or like the macroeconomic geopolitics that we're currently living in. So I think with altcoins it comes to taking it slow relatively. ETH against USDT. Finally, chart looks a little like Burj Khalifa. But what do we see here when it comes to ETH? Kind of the same structure as when we are discussing Bitcoin against USDT. We have created ourselves a higher low here and are most likely seeking for the liquidity above these highs. But the difference with Bitcoin is that ETH is not bouncing too strong. Bitcoin is already attacking those highs. And I think that the correlation is still quite high when it comes to the altcoins. So if Bitcoin is going to make a reversal, ETH is also looking at a potential reversal and might not even reach those highs. What do we see? Test of resistance here, in which we reject. So most likely the level that I think we should be watching is this entire block around 3100. That if we're going to have a test there, I think we're going to have a correction south. If we do break above 3100, that might be a signal for strength on the markets. But I think you want to watch Bitcoin first, and then second, what the Bitcoin dominance or at ETH against Bitcoin is going to do. So, a long update today. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Subscribe beneath, like it, comment if you enjoy the content. I'll be back later this week with an additional update. I've had a good time. I'll see you around. Take care. Don't do stupid shit, and have a wonderful day.